the UK government is in conversation with NATO allies about sending troops to Greenland to ease Trump's security fears. Should Britain send troops to Greenland? 0345 6060 973, text 84850. David, I'll come to your call in a second. Alicia says this: I don't understand. Has Greenland asked for troops to be sent? Have they asked for help? I don't think they have, Alicia, but NATO had a meeting on Thursday in Brussels to discuss this, and it looks like there is going to be some sort of joint force sent there to beef up security on the ground. Thank you for your text. David in Amersham, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I think the thought of Britain sending troops to Greenland is rather pathetic. I can understand the political reasons, but we don't have any influence over that theatre. I think the solution is for a deal to be done between Greenland and Canada. I don't trust Trump further than I can throw him. Whatever he says today is not relevant to tomorrow. But if Canada did or Greenland did a sale and lease back for Greenland to Canada, then Greenland would come under Canada's sphere of influence, and therefore Trump couldn't just take it over. I mean, if America want to send troops into Greenland for defensive purposes, there's nothing to stop them. Greenland would welcome it. They used to have several bases there, but they reduced them.
But David, there's no love lost between Mark Carney and Donald Trump. I know that it was pretty frosty when they started. I think it's thawed a little bit because Mark Carney's quite a skilled, quite diplomatic in these matters, and played quite hardball. So I think it's thawed a little bit. But Trump wants Greenland, and you can argue about why, whether it's a real estate land grab or not, but there is an argument strategically why it's important. Jamie Shea just outlined it. He was at NATO. Early warning systems and radars, sea lines of communication, and raw earths, but not just raw earths. So there is a rationale strategically why Trump wants it.
I understand that, but just because it sounds like a child. I want doesn't get.
Well, he's got the biggest armaments in the world. So I mean, he kind of can, can't he?
Well, then we can all go to hell in the handcart, can't we?
Well, we kind of already are, aren't we, on the back of Venezuela? No, I mean, no, David, we can look. I was discussing this yesterday, right, with David Marsh about can Europe survive? If we're going to hell in a handcart, and you can see which way the trolley cart's going, before you get to hell, arm up and actually try and become more self-sufficient before you get there, which means having a serious conversation about military spending and ramping it up to massive, massive levels.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that sentiment, but, what I'm saying is they don't have to own Greenland to put all the defence strategy...
Yes, David. I mean, and that's the argument that people are making, that, you can lease it, you can put whatever you want there, but he believes ownership is different to a rental agreement.
He's transactional. All he wants is how much money he and his billionaires and trillionaires can make out of it. It's not for the good of the Greenland people. It's not even for the good of the American people. It's for the good of Trump.
Okay, before you go, David, let me ask you this. Are you concerned about the fact that China in particular is now looking to develop what they call the Polar Silk Road? Deutsche Bank had a piece out last July entitled $1 Trillion Ocean, which talks about the mineral reserves in the Arctic Circle and the amount of money that can be made. And we're also talking about the development of the Northwest Passage and Russia, the Northern Sea Route, and this Polar Silk Road that China's trying to develop. I mean, are you concerned about it? And do you think that NATO is enough of a deterrence to China and indeed Russia for their designs and adventures in the Arctic Circle?
Well, as long as there's tensions between the USA and NATO, it's not a deterrent. But
that's interesting.
The solution is for America and Canada and Greenland to work together.
My opinion is that we should be in the peace party, and the UK is a member of NATO, and the US and Denmark including Greenland, is member of the NATO, and NATO is already dealing with this issue. We should be the majority and not with the US, who is breaking NATO rules in this issue and in any other.
I understand the point about rules, Andrea, and look, I understand the importance of NATO to NATO states who are in the alliance, but obviously the most important party in NATO is America. I mean, NATO without America is a little bit like the solar system without the sun. I mean, you need America in NATO if NATO is going to mean anything at all. And at the moment, Trump has got a different worldview. He sees the world carved up into spheres of influence. He's made it very clear he does not want Russia and China as a neighbour. Now, you might argue that that's a little bit overblown because, as Jamie Shea was explaining, the amount of maritime activity going on around Greenland and the amount of sea movements is, I mean, look, it's not massive at the moment. Yes, there are Northern Fleet and all the rest of it, but it's not huge at the moment. But he doesn't want to take that chance, ostensibly, right? He just wants to say, look, I would rather act now and have this as a strategic foothold, and I'm not going to rely on anyone else for my own security.
That is one issue. The other issue is to owning Greenland. Yes. And Trump is not against Russia. He is preparing a pact with Russia, ruling the world and sharing it. That is obvious. He didn't harm Russia at all. And
well, he has still supplied a lot of weaponry
in Greenland for the security. If the NATO forces, including the UK, proportionally, and all the other countries' forces are involved, there are many US troops already on Greenland for many years, since World War II. It can be solved out. It doesn't need to change ownership and to export American rules.
Okay, so Andrea, you've made the point very clearly, and a lot of people will agree with you, and a lot of people will be very worried about the noises off that the US president is engaging in on this. If he ignores you, and if he, as he says, the nice way or the more difficult way, takes Greenland, either by some sort of mergers and acquisitions transaction, by hiring some very decent investment bank to go and do it, a la Barings back when the Louisiana Purchase took place. And I've looked at the Louisiana Purchase in the archive at the old Barings. Fascinating. It's either going to happen that way, or it might happen by just simply getting in there and stationing military personnel. I mean, NATO can't do anything about it, can it?
Yes, I think we need to send some troops to Greenland, along with obviously our NATO allies for everyone's protection. But I'm also thinking we've got assets in the South Atlantic, i.e. the Falklands. Mm-hmm. So logistically, if you look at a map, logistically, our assets, that's literally the other end of the planet. Yep. You know, mm-hmm. So that's and then if in Argentina may think, oh, Britain's in trouble here.
Let's have a go.
In Greenland, and then we've got to look south as well. So I'm just thinking about that.
Do you think the Argentinians might have another go?
I don't know, but if you look at a map and you look what we've got to defend, they're not close to each other, are they? Do you know what I mean?
They're not close to each other. They're not close to each other, Jack. And at the moment, our military is effectively threadbare. I mean, we've got 72,000 troops, and I'm basing this on what. I'm being told and what leading military figures are effectively sharing openly. I mean, the retired Air Marshal Edward Stringer described Britain's national defences as a flimsy facade.
Yeah, I just think, because obviously if you're going to defend the Falklands as well, I mean, I'm not suggesting Argentina is going to invade it, but logistically, if you just look at a map, anyone just looks at a map and look at where the Falklands are, and where Greenland is, and that's sort of assets that you need to deploy to make sure it's all covered. And as you said, it's not there, is it? So, you know.
No, it's not. Before you go, Jack, let me ask you this. Gary from Devon's written this. There's absolutely no doubt that the Greenland situation is a land grab. Anything that needs to be done from a defence point of view can be done with the existing arrangements. There is nothing that Trump would be able to do in terms of protecting the Arctic if he had control of Greenland that he cannot already to do. My big worry is what would be next. Trump could use the same arguments to try and take over Iceland, and what landmass would be next moving eastwards.
No, in our direct answer to the question of should Britain send troops to Greenland, absolutely not. There is no strategic value to that objective whatsoever. We need to be looking eastwards, not westwards, if at all. And I think we need to be thinking about how do we motivate the recruitment of young men and women into the armed forces, because currently nobody wants to fight for the country of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland or whatever it is now, as it is, Ali. And I just think that the morale amongst our troops is at the lowest ebb probably since, I don't know, before the Napoleonic War, Ali. I don't know how far back it goes, but nobody is supportive of our national objectives in any way, shape or form. Possibly they would, and I'm not supporting this this patriotic wave of right wing, whatever you want to call it, what do they call it now? Populism. Possibly in there, if there was but I think people have to have a direct goal in mind. Now, I think people are so concerned, and quite rightly so, with the cost of living, energy bills, their families, the trouble that their sons and daughters are having in buying houses. For them to march off to Greenland ain't going to happen, Ali.
Well, it's interesting, Delroy, that you put the counterpoint, because there are quite a few people who are saying that the objective of sending troops, whichever troops we have, I don't know how many we can send, but even a force that is a token force, is to try and convince Donald Trump. The argument is you try and convince Donald Trump that NATO's taking this seriously. NATO will support and have the US's back in looking at the Arctic Circle, looking at the strategic importance of Greenland and protecting it. So therefore, Mr. President, you don't have to worry your little head about trying to take it over. That's the argument. And Delroy, you're saying that there's no point doing that. Where does the corollary of that then? Where does that lead us, Delroy?
I strip it back to basics, as we all should. Money. Where do we get the budgets, the finances to channel into it? Now, of course, you could say all we need to have is one of the men in grey suits to go up to Threadneedle Street and have a word with the Bank of England, and they'll just print.
They can't magic it up from nowhere.
Yeah. So if that were but it's always going to be manpower.